Hey everybody, welcome to another Tausken review. Today we'll be taking a look at Frostpunk's latest DLC called The Last Autumn, which is set before the Great Freeze that takes place in the vanilla gameplay. The Last Autumn is a great DLC because it understands what is great about the original game and expands upon it, but also does things in a unique way to add a bit of a twist to it. There's new and interesting objectives that make things feel very fresh compared to the base game. You'll still have to contend with things like the bitter cold, but your main goal for The Last Autumn is to build the generator for a future city to sprout. Your main goal in The Last Autumn is to meet different deadlines, which are basically milestones in the generator's completion that you'll have to meet. Failure to meet those deadlines will result in failure and expulsion as a director of the project, which basically means that you auto lose. It's a unique challenge that changes the way you play. You're kind of more focused on trying to keep people happy than simply just alive in general, like you would be in the base game. Along with these new goals, there's completely new structures, and instead of building things like mines, you'll have to build harbors to ship in goods like coal, iron, and wood to fuel your project. And you won't even be able to build like farms to grow crops or hunters' huts to go and find food. Instead, you'll have to send out foragers to gather it or send out a ship to go and fish it. There's also two completely new paths to the law system in The Last Autumn. So you've got the workers' path and the engineers' path. The workers are basically focused on building like a super union that just sort of keeps everyone in line through a giant union that constructs and restricts everybody and motivates everyone. The engineer's path is more of like an authoritarian path, much like the vanilla game's authoritarian path. It basically has the engineers being sort of like the elite caste, and they basically imprison the workers into slave labor to construct the generator at any cost. There's also a couple reused laws, but many are new, so it's not really a bummer that you have things like care houses and all that are reused, but honestly, that's kind of what they'd have to do to bring the care houses and things like that back in, so it doesn't really matter. We've also got new structures that go with those, so you get different abilities for like the unions that can motivate people and reduce the risks of protests and strikes and all that. They've also changed up the hope and discontent system into a new discontent and motivation system. Motivation, when high, can produce production bonuses, so it's very important to keep it going and to build the things that'll keep people happy. Failing to meet deadlines and things can really hamper on these. Sending foraging parties out has never been more important as it is in The Last Autumn, as you don't have the ability to build crops or hunters' huts, so you'll basically have to rely upon foragers that'll go and discover food sources and send them back. I did feel like the scouting, though, was not quite as fun from a thematic and lore standpoint. There's references to the other scenarios and lore I found, but generally there was a lot less to find out in the wilderness. Perhaps that's because the other generators are under construction and thus nobody's moved in, but I didn't really run into anything fun or interesting. It just kind of felt like we ran into this dig site and then everybody's gone. We ran into these supplies, everybody's gone, or just generic things like that that didn't really change the game much. There's also a new safety mechanic where you're basically trying to motivate people with like the engineers or using the union system for the workers' path to try and keep people in line, or putting in safety struts and things like that, or putting in workplace standards which might slow production. It's just all built around the system that people get pissed off and are more likely to strike when there's disasters, so you have to worry about safety to try and keep the working environment safe for your people actually constructing. Overall, The Last Autumn is a ton of fun. It brings new and fresh, unique gameplay that helps freshen up Frostpunk in a way that I honestly didn't feel like I would come back to this game after the most recent DLC. I feel like they took the time to make something completely fresh and different here, and it justifies its $16.99 price tag. The Last Autumn gets an 8 out of 10. It's a great expansion I'd recommend for anybody who liked Frostpunk's original gameplay. It does have the same repetitiveness and lack of replayability like the base game. You can really only play this like 2 times to completion to try out the workers and the engineers path, but other than that, it's still a ton of fun, and I definitely got my money's worth with around 5 to 10 hours or so of additional gameplay just playing this scenario alone and messing around with the new paths.